Today, we will discuss about avulsions in regards to Adele case number 26. Before we dive into the topic of avulsions, let us briefly discuss few important key points for traumatic dental injuries. For traumatic dental injuries, we usually follow a protocol. And I remember the protocol with an acronym. And the acronym is trauma. The trauma is spelled slightly different. I use a V instead of a U. So the T here stands for tetanus booster, which is true only in situations of avulsions where the tooth has been knocked out of the socket, is now contaminated, and the plan is to reimplant it in the socket. Our R stands for radiographs. In most of the situations of trauma, you would require at least one periapical. In some situations like root fractures, you may require more than one PA. Usually you would have 3 PAs at different vertical angulations and an occlusal radiograph. And some cases like suspected jaw trauma, you might require an OPG. So you at least require one radiograph in a case in situations of dental trauma. Our A stands for antibiotics, which is again true only in situations of avulsions. Where the tooth has been knocked out of the socket, it's now contaminated, and the plan is to reimplant it in the socket, hence to prevent any infection from the contamination. Our U, actually the V here, stands for the vitality testing, which is the EPT and the cold test. Always remember that these tests test for the sensory supply of the tooth, which is not the true measure of the vitality of the tooth. The true measure of vitality of the tooth would be the vascular supply of the tooth. After an episode of trauma, the sensory supply of the tooth may be disrupted for around 2 to 8 weeks. Hence, when tested with the pulp testing methods, we may have a false negative response, when the tooth may be actually vital. Hence, we test it with more appointments. So our M and an A stands for more appointments, which are usually at 3 weeks, 3 months, 6 months, and 12 months after the trauma. Now quickly let's revise the Ellis classification. Ellis class 1 has one layer of the tooth. It involves one layer of the tooth, which is the enamel. Ellis class 2 involves the 2 layers of the teeth, that is the enamel and the dentine. Ellis class 3 involves 3 layers of the teeth, that is the enamel, dentine and the pulp. Ellis class 4 kills the tooth, and Ellis class 5 kicks the tooth out. So that is an avulsion, that is exarticulation, which is the topic for interest today. So you could also remember that avulsions has a V in it, and it is similar to Roman number 5. So it is an Ellis class 5 classification. So coming to the topic of avulsion, whenever you have an incident of trauma, there are certain things that should be documented in your records. The first important aspect is the exact timing of the trauma, that is, when did the trauma occur. The reason why this is important is because the prognosis of a lot of traumatic injuries, especially the complicated ones, would depend upon the time that has elapsed since the injury occurred. So the timing is very important for the prognosis and the outcome of the treatment provided. Also, in pediatric patients, delayed treatment timings have been associated with child neglect and abuse cases, so it has to be documented for medical legal purposes. The second important aspect is the location of the injury. Where did the trauma occur? Because a trauma that occurred outdoors would give you an idea that the degree of contamination of the wound would be greater, and hence it would modify the treatment plan. The third important aspect would be how did the trauma occur, if there was anyone else injured in the trauma, or if it was a roadside accident. Again, for medical legal purposes, it has to be documented. We have to rule out head injury, so any episode of nausea or vomiting, dizziness, or blurred vision should be ruled out prior to dental testing. For medical history, it is important to know if the patient has any bleeding disorder, any history of cardiac problems, or any disease that immunocompromises the patient, because again it's going to modify your treatment plan. Now, in a situation of avulsion, the prognosis would depend on two factors: EADT, that is the extra-alveolus dry time, the amount of time the tooth has been out and is dry out of the socket. So anything that is more than 60 minutes, the prognosis would go down, and the prognosis is generally better if it's less than 30 minutes. The second aspect the second aspect would be if the tooth is open apex or a closed apex. Means that the tooth is mature or immature. So these are the two important factors. And the third one is how the storage media in which the tooth has been stored when the patient drives to the dentist's office. So as a generalization, you could remember, for avulsions you would clean, re-implant and flexible splint for 1 to 2 weeks. This is an overgeneralization just for MCQ purposes, but the exact treatment would depend upon if the tooth is closed apex or open apex and the time that has elapsed since the injury occurred. So I have put the treatment in the table and you could just go through it. So it's better that if the patient drives to you within first 30 minutes since the injury occurred and the way the tooth has been stored. Also, no attempts should be made to reimplant and primary tooth, as it could damage the permanent tooth bud, and also the prognosis of a primary tooth is not very favorable. An X-ray may be needed to check the permanent tooth bud for space maintenance. Now let's talk about the storage media. Instead of keeping the tooth dry, we have an option to store it while the patient drives to the dentist office. The HBSS, that is Hank's Balanced Salt Solution, is considered the best storage media. It's also marketed as Save a Tooth. The second best option would be milk. Then we have saline and the saliva, if the patient is mature enough to hold the tooth in the mouth without swallowing it. And out of all of these, water is least desirable because it is quite hypotonic and it does not have the correct balance of ions. The long-term response to trauma, that is a side effect of trauma on the long term. So we have external resorption and internal resorption. So let's talk about the external resorption. The external resorption initiates in the periodontium due to the damage of the cementoblastic layer of the PDL. And there are subcategories in the external resorption, the first of them being the replacemental resorption. So replacement resorption is a bad side effect of using rigid splint or using splints for a longer duration. This is also called as ankylosis, where the body replaces periodontium with the bone, hence the name replacement resorption. Next one, in external resorption, we have the cervical resorption, which is subepithelium sulcular infection resulting from trauma or non-vital bleaching. So there is still a lot of controversy on the exact cause, and maybe the exact cause is still unknown, but they believe it to be the trauma or non-vital bleaching. Subepithelial means under the epithelium at the sulcus, and it initiates at the CEJ of the tooth. On radiograph, you may see a racket mouth tooth appearance, and clinically there may be a pink spot on the tooth. Let's go to the next one, that is inflammatory root resorption. So the toxins and the bacteria from the pulp, travel to the apical foramen of the affected PDL, and this causes the inflammatory root resorption. So the margins of this resorption are ragged and they are poorly defined, and it moves with angle radiograph. That is, the lesion appears to move on an angled radiograph. Now let's go to the next one, that is the internal resorption. So the internal resorption is within the tooth. It is in the root canal system. It could be due to trauma or a necrotic tooth, but it has a better prognosis when compared to an external resorption. The treatment for internal resorption would be root canal treatment, and the margins when compared to external resorption is sharp and well defined, and it does not move with angle radiographs because it lies in the center of the tooth. So let's get back to avulsion. So if reimplantation is not possible or the tooth is not available, we have options to replace the tooth, and the options could be a removable option like a partial denture. It could be a fixed option like a resin bonded bridge, or it could be an implant. So it would depend on a lot of factors like the patient preference and the choice of the patient and a lot of clinical problem list.